you hear us all right, George?
I hear you fine.
Okay, great. All right. Hello?
Hello? This is Faith.
Yes. This is the Kovair presentation for Computer Associates.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. We are just waiting for others to join. Let me see if I can get hold of David. I'll put you all on mute and then. Hello?
Hello,
Is that David?
this is David, yeah.
David, hi. This is Rajiv. I have George Watt and another person on the line. Also, I have, I don't know whether you have others on the line as well or not.
Not yet, I don't believe.
Okay.
You're still waiting on a few people.
Sure.
I know there was a meeting, webinar earlier. Mario and...
Yeah, they got done. But I think you should just get started.
Okay. So who do I have on the line?
So, David, on our end, this is Rajiv, and then I have Sky Basu, who is our CTO, and Atanu Majumdar, who is our VP of Engineering.
Hi, David. This is Sky.
Hi.
Hi, this is Atanu.
Hello. So on this end, and George, you're on the line, and Grace. So we'll get started. I think a few people might join us late, but we'll get started. So over the last couple of weeks, as a brief introduction, I've been researching ALM frameworks and platforms and from various vendors, and and these platforms will enable or empower, some of these engineering excellence process tracks, via the tools, allow us to integrate ALM tools that will be part of these process tracks. And I believe, with the right solution, that we can really amplify the success of the engineering excellence program.
Okay.
As a big part of this type of solution, there's a reporting and analytics and metrics component of each platform that allows you to be able to extract information, shared collaborative information from all these ALM tools integrated via the framework. And that's primarily what Kovair, the vendor we have online today, is going to show us. They'll give us a brief introduction of what they do and show some of the analytics. Perhaps we can have, from the CA side, just have a brief introduction of who you are and what you do. Dan, can you start?
Yeah, hi, Narendra Gampuri here. I'm part of an engineering excellence initiative, which is basically a CMMI initiative, and I'm the lead for quality assurance. So I'm interested in the tools related to quality assurance.
George?
Hello, my name is Grace Gao. I'm in the engineering services group. My major responsibilities are managing the source code repository and automation tools.
And George?
Hi, it's George Watt. I'm responsible for the engineering services organization, which covers the automation tools, the source code repository, our ALM strategy, and our research and development cloud.
Okay. All right. And David, as we introduced a little earlier, so as you and I discussed, and you mentioned briefly right now, is that our presentation will be geared towards showing you how an integrated environment using Kovair's Omnibus integration technology framework will benefit your development environment. So without further ado, I would leave it up to Sky to start the presentation. Sky, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Rajiv, and welcome everybody. Today what we are trying to do is basically give you a high-level presentation about Kovair as a solution, as well as Kovair as an integration platform to integrate various different tools. And we'll show you a couple of different examples of these integrations, and possibly you can visualize how it will work within your own organization when you are using a number of different tools, both of your own tools as well as tools from other vendors. Okay. Now, let me share my desktop. Can you see my desktop there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, so let me start with the very first question, what is Kovair? So one way to look at Kovair is it is a box of a number of different applications, both in the areas of application lifecycle management or ALM and IT service management, ITSM. In the ALM side, we have the built-in applications in requirements management, test management, issues, release, risk management. And in the ITSM side, we have the service request, incident management, change problem, service catalog, etc. And all of these applications are delivered as 100% browser-based, which is actually grounds-up architected as a web architecture, and especially suitable for a distributed team globally with an access 24/7. The second component of Kovair is its process technology. We have a process engine called OmniProcess. It's a task-based process engine which is superior to a state-based process engine which you typically see in many of the other tools. And using this process technology, you can define, implement, and automate processes for any of the built-in applications. So, for example, you can create a requirements management process for the review and approval of the requirements, or the issues management, or maybe the incident management, service catalog, etc. You can actually define multiple processes for each application as well. The third component of Kovair is basically our main topic of today, is our integration technology called Omnibus. So it is a SOA-based integration technology. Architecture is ESB, Enterprise Service Bus. So which basically means that you can integrate any tool, either internal tools or third-party vendor tools or legacy applications, running anywhere in the world on any kind of platform, whether it's on Linux, Windows, Sun, doesn't matter, even behind the firewall, because we are using SOA web services. And finally, Kovair is also a platform, which basically means that using Kovair, you can create your own user-defined applications. And these applications are as powerful as any of the built-in applications, because the built-in applications are also configured using the same platform. Now, what is really great about this platform is you don't have to write a single line of code. So this is basically the end-user development platform, or what is now known as the citizen development platform as well. That means you don't need to know the programming languages like Java, C, etc. You can actually do and create a very powerful application just by drag and drop. And what is really important is that all of these applications you create, they will be using, you can use the Omni process, our process engine on top of that, as well as the integration. That means your application will be process enabled, at the same time will be integrated with other applications and tools. Now, if we look at the typical development life cycle, it starts with the user, maybe an internal or external customer, and they submit different kinds of suggestions or different kinds of ideas, and that is the ideation phase. And Kovair can actually manage those ideation or suggestions within its own application. You can have a process for review and approval of those suggestions. And those ideas which are approved are converted into requirements. But you can also get requirements from other sources. And once you have got those requirements, it goes through a requirements management process, which is converted into a development package. So development package is typically a container for a number of these different requirements, which you hand over to the developer for implementation. Because as you know, the developers don't work on a single requirement at a time. They work on multiple related requirements together. In different organizations, development packages are called different names, like features or maybe the action items, etc. And then also you have the QA who are creating these test cases, having a traceability relation with those requirements in the development packages. Then this development goes through the development process, which is kind of core process where you do the estimation of efforts, costs, etc. You assign the different kinds of resources. You also assign it to different releases by doing a release planning, which goes through a release management process, and finally it is released to the customer. So customers start using it. They have got now more ideas. At the same time, they have got enhancement requests, bugs, issues, change requests, etc., which goes through a change management process. So if you look at this story here, I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with that. Maybe the character names are a little bit different. Now, if you look at it, this particular picture here, there are two important things I want you to note. Number one, you see that there are many microprocesses there. So the microprocesses like the requirements management or the change management or the development management or the release management, those are the microprocesses. And if you look at the whole picture together, that's a macro process which actually synchronizes between all these different microprocesses. So Kovair can actually implement both the micro and macro processes just within itself. And the second point I want you to note is that in the old days, or as a matter of fact, most of the other organizations, people use a number of different tools to implement this story, and which is kind of a little bit of the tools do not really talk to each other. But in Kovair, we can actually implement the whole story itself within Kovair itself. So those are the two things I want to note. And the third thing is we also realize that people use a number of different tools. So you can have, for example, Quality Center used by the QA. You can have possibly the Visual Studio as an IDE, purpose for your configuration management. You can have Microsoft Project for project management. So Kovair actually allows integration with all these different tools to deliver this story as one single story rather than all these little short stories which are not connected with each other. Now, if you look at the development life cycle, each of the cylinders represent the different phases of that life cycle. They also represent the number of different tools in these silos. Now, let me give you a couple of examples. You may have a product management group for a company working out of Boston using a requirements management tool. And then you can have a QA group of a company B, which is a different company, maybe an outsourcing company working out of Bangalore and using a test management tool on a different platform. Now, it is almost guaranteed that these two tools are not talking to each other. And if they don't talk to each other, the requirements change as always, and the QA will never know about those changes. So they are still testing the wrong requirements, and which, as you can understand, is not good. Now, because of the siloed natures of these tools, the problems are, number one, there is no coordination or enforcement of any kind of process. There may be some pockets of processes, but there is no process across the life cycle. The second problem, as we have seen, there is no relationship, there is no traceability between the artifacts which are entrapped in these different tools. Then it is very difficult to create a consolidated report. So, for example, if you want to create a release note, you have to possibly compile it manually using something like Microsoft Word and by collecting information from a different number of different tools, which is very cumbersome. And finally, there is no collaboration. Each of the group is working in isolation within their tool only. Now, if these are the problems, how do you solve it? In Kovair, we solve it by putting everything together in a single repository called Kovair repository. Now, each of the cylinders represent not the different silos, but each of the built-in applications within Kovair framework. We also call them entities. And we also allow people to create their own entities to create those user-defined applications. So once you have got everything in a single repository, now you can do the collaboration, the process, traceability report across all of these applications. Now, this is a very nice picture for any organization who is just using Kovair. But unfortunately, the reality is a little different. Reality is, when we go to an organization, we see people are already using a number of different tools. So these are some of the examples of the tools. To that, we introduce Kovair with its own built-in applications. The question is, how can we deliver the value we have seen in the previous slide when we had just one single repository? But here we are working with multiple repositories. Each of the silver cylinder is a different repository, different database. Some may be using a flat file, some may be using an Excel, some using XML. But we can still deliver the value of a single repository with multiple repositories if we use Kovair Omnibus technology. The way we do it is we create a number of different entities within Kovair repository which represent the objects in the external tool. We also call them proxy entities. And now using Omnibus, our integration technology, we create the adapters for these external tools which actually have an integration between the external object in this external tool and the proxy entities of Kovair. Now, you see that we support both synchronization. Synchronization is a two-way replication as well as federation. Federation means that it is not all the data is replicated from the external tool, but they are fetched in on demand whenever necessary. Now, whatever be the way, once the data is in Kovair repository, now we can do the collaboration, the traceability reports process across all of this information, even when they are coming from these external tools. And this is what is known as multi-repository ALM. And Forrester Research actually recognizes that Kovair is the only vendor today who can actually deliver on this particular promise. Now, let's look at the Kovair architectural framework. So, at the bottom, we have the application foundation service, which includes the security, the users management, the collaboration, access control, all of those things. Then on top of that, we have the Omni process, which is our process management technology. And then we have the application management framework, which includes the built-in applications as well as the user-defined applications. And as I have mentioned, all the built-in applications use exactly the same framework as any of the user-defined applications. Then we also have the task management and time management, which is integrated with the rest of the system. And around everything, we have this Omnibus so that you can integrate with the rest of the system very easily using our SOA-based technology. These are the salient features of our application foundation services. As you can see that this is equivalent to as if you're creating a database application, but you don't need to know how to write a SQL statement, how to create a table, because everything is by drag and drop. But basically you are creating these entities, you are creating the relations between these entities, just like you do in the ER diagram. But by doing that, Kovair is developing the whole model in the back end, so that you are getting a fully functional, powerful application with a lot of features just by drag and drop. This is an example of process. As I mentioned, the Kovair has a task-based process engine, which is superior to a state-based process engine. Let me elaborate on that a little bit. You see that typically most of the process engines are state-based, which basically means an item can be in one state alone at any point of time. But Kovair being a task-based, you can have multiple tasks. For example, you see here, this is actually a process for requirements management, example one. So we can have two activities in parallel. One is assigned to an architect, another assigned to a role called testers, and actually there can be multiple people playing each of these roles. And simultaneously, architects and testers are working on the same requirement. And that is the advantage of a task-based system, where you can have a parallelism when multiple people are working on the same item in different ways. In a state-based system, you cannot have that because in a state-based system, an item can be in only one state. By the way, this is our process designer running on the browser. As I mentioned, that everything runs on the browser. So this is a browser-based process designer, very much like Visio. Again, you can create this just by drag and drop. So these are some of the omni-process features. This is a very powerful one, and I can give you one anecdotal kind of story here. That one of our customers, they were using Remedy, and I'm sure that you are very familiar with Remedy, which is one of your competitors. I know that because you have a help desk system similar to Remedy also. And Remedy, they have a process engine, pretty powerful one, and this customer was using Remedy, but they found that Kovair process technology is superior in number of different ways. First of all, it's much easier way to create one. It is much faster to change. It's much faster to implement. And they actually replaced Remedy by Kovair because of the power of Kovair's process engine. Okay, so now let's talk about the integration. Now, I'm sure that you guys are very familiar with the difference between an enterprise service bus and a point-to-point integration. You see that in our industry, especially in the application lifecycle management and ITSM, whenever people talk about the integration, it is point-to-point integration. It is between two tools, right? Now, if you look at on the right-hand side, if I've got 5 tools here, you actually need 10 different custom integration between point-to-point if you want to have a complete coverage of all the tools. So basically, you want to see the relation between the data from 2 tools, okay? Then you need to have these 10 different integrations. But in an enterprise service bus, you have a service bus and you just need 5 different adapters for these 5 different tools. So Kovair Omnibus uses an enterprise service bus. So from that point of view, as you can see, it is superior to a point-to-point custom integration. First of all, it is standardized, it is structured, it's based on a framework, a platform, so it is not ad hoc like a point-to-point integration. And what is more important, let's say tomorrow you want to replace one of the tools by another tool, maybe from the same vendor, it may be an upgrade of the tool, or it may be from another vendor, a superior tool you found and you want to replace it. In a point-to-point custom integration, in this particular case, you have to actually replace 4 different integrations because it is connected with 4 other tools. But in a ESB situation, you have to just replace one single adapter, which is a substantial savings in terms of effort and cost and time, etc. So I'm sure that this is actually a pretty well-known fact. So I just wanted to highlight that. Now, for Omnibus, these are the kind of difference or the highlights of the omnibus. First of all, as I mentioned, it is a hub or bus architecture rather than point-to-point. Reduces the effort, cost, etc. It is based on web services, so which basically means the external tools can be anywhere in the world, running on any kind of platform, and even behind the firewall, which is actually very important because possibly you know that one of the biggest challenges in integration sometimes is going through those firewalls, and especially when you have got multiple different organizations, even within the same company are being integrated. Each organization has its own location, has its own firewall, and working through the firewall is sometimes really challenging. Web service actually takes care of that. And there are many advanced features here. Now, I want to kind of introduce one more fact. Recently, Infosys, and I'm sure that you are familiar with the name of Infosys, which is one of the largest service companies out of India. So Infosys is, as a matter of fact, implementing Kovair for integrating a large number of their tools, actually 21 of their tools. And these tools include many of the rational tools, Microsoft tools, many of the open source tools, as well as their internal tools. And possibly this is one of the largest ecosystem of development tools they are actually creating. And Infosys being Infosys, a software company, of course, they don't have any lack of software talent. So they tried to develop their own integration, and eventually they found that it is almost impossible to kind of manage all this point-to-point integration. For a 20 tools integration, actually it will need about 190 different integration codes. It's a n squared, n into n minus 1 divided by 2. So they came to us and saw our omnibus architecture. They went through the evaluation. All those advanced features you see, that many of those they actually tested to find out whether it is really stable, whether it really works in a production system, in a highly kind of intense kind of environment, and then they decided to use it. For the last actually 3 quarters, we are delivering number of different adapters for their different tools here. So what I'm trying to say here is that Omnibus is a very mature, proven technology which is being used by one of the largest software organizations in the world in a production system by a large number of different tools integration.
I wanted to make one quick point here. This is Rajiv. At Infosys, they also looked at other vendors like IBM and others to provide them with this integration capabilities. And some of them were vaporwares, and some of them really couldn't deliver on the promise. So eventually they came with Kovair. And Sky, was it like a few months that we did all those integration and everything and got them up and running?
Yeah, so we, as a matter of fact, every quarter we are providing them the adapters of the tools based on their priority. So basically our adapters are being created. Typically an adapter creation takes about 4 to 6 man weeks. So, and as I mentioned that we have a plan of integrating 21 different tools as far as Infosys is concerned. Actually, we have a long list of tools at the end of this presentation, and I'll share that with you. Okay? All right. So the last point I want to make is the process. You see that integration through Omnibus also gives you a process enablement of the other tools. And that's actually a very interesting point, is that many of these tools in our industry, and I'm sure that you are aware of that, they don't have any built-in process. So even the most well-known tools, they do not have any kind of built-in process. Though, interestingly, they claim, almost every tool claims that they have a process. But remember the process I shown you before with a graphical user interface, and graphically you can draw the workflow. And that kind of process, almost none of the tools have. By integrating using Omnibus, actually you can process enable those tools. Let me give you an example. Requisite Pro, which is a very well-known requirements management tool, right, from Rational. So once you have integrated Requisite Pro, when you create a requirement in Requisite Pro, and if you have a requirement workflow created in Kovair, then that requirement will actually flow through the Omni processor, Kovair's processor engine, and you will get all the benefits of that process, though it has been already created, or it has been created in Requisite Pro, and at every point as it is flowing through the process, that requirement in Requisite Pro will be updated with the current status and everything. So, though Requisite Pro doesn't have any process capability like Kovair, just by integrating with Omnibus, you process enabled it. And this is true for any other tools as well. Moreover, if there is a tool which already has a process capability, then Kovair can actually communicate and synchronize with those processes, provided that process engine has certain ability or capability of doing that. All right, so the next what I'd like to give you is an example of this integration. And for that example, actually, we have taken a real-life example, as a matter of fact, and this is a real-life example of a Java development environment using a number of different tools from different vendors. Okay, so this is a mixed vendor situation, and many of them actually open source. And so this should give you a pretty good idea of how that integration really works. Okay, so let's start from here. So here is an example where requirements management is done by Kovair. Kovair actually has a very powerful requirements management tool, actually one of the leading requirements management tool in the market. Later, possibly, we can talk more about just the requirements management. Typically, one single session goes for the requirements management only. Then this particular environment uses Eclipse for coding. And again, Eclipse, as you know, can be used for many different languages, but typically it is used for Java. Then the configuration management by subversion. Then we have the software builds is using Ant, which is based on Eclipse again. Then you have the unit test using JUnit, again using the Eclipse interface. Then you have the test management using Kovair. So Kovair has a built-in application for test management, so you can use that for managing all the test cases, test sets, etc. Then you have the issues or defect tracking using Kovair. And finally, the whole project management is done by Kovair. So this is the kind of environment, and as you can see, almost it covers the complete life cycle, starting from requirements management to coding, to configuration management, to build management, to unit testing, to the regression testing and other user acceptance testing, etc., defect and issue tracking, and the project management. So this is the whole situation, and every time all of these tools, including Kovair, is communicating with Omnibus, which is the bus, by a bidirectional data transfer. So let's now look at the whole thing step by step. So this is the overall kind of scenario. Let's look at that, how is it happening step by step. Okay, so the first is these are the players, these are the characters in our story. Okay, and then it starts with the business analyst. They are creating the requirements, they are approving the requirements using the Kovair interface. So here is the screenshot from the Kovair interface, which is basically a browser-based, as I mentioned, and the business analyst can actually use the Kovair interface to approve a requirement. When they approve the requirement, those requirements become available to the rest of the team. Now, one thing is very important here is that you see that there are many requirements coming from different sources, but you don't want to kind of expose all the requirements to all the team members. It is not necessary, but you want to do only those which are approved. So Omnibus allows you to do conditionally to kind of replicate and synchronize data from one tool to another tool when only a particular condition is satisfied. So in this particular case, when the requirements are approved. Next, it goes to the developer. So developer uses the Eclipse interface, which is at the top, and they write the code for a particular requirement or maybe a set of requirements. And you see that in the bottom screen, what we show here, what we call the traceability view. In the traceability view, it shows our requirement, okay, in the Kovair requirements management, is linked by the traceability relation to the code which are in Eclipse. Okay? Excuse me, I think there is some sound coming. Can you put the phone on mute, please? Thank you. So this shows a traceability relation between the requirements which is in Kovair and the code which are getting generated in Eclipse. The next step is that code is of course available through Omnibus for review to the other people, and they can use actually Kovair for reviewing those code as well. The next is Subversion. So now these files, the code files, the source files, are being managed by Subversion. So they are checked in Subversion. And here in our traceability view, it shows that traceability from the requirements to the code files to the Subversion change list. So as you know, possibly if you're familiar with Subversion, Subversion has an entity or object called the change list, and these code files are related to those change lists. The next is, of course, those change lists is now available to the builds for doing the build management using Ant. So here is, again, the Ant, of course, uses the Eclipse interface, though it is a separate tool, really. The interface is Eclipse. And here you see that now, in our traceability view, which is in Kovair, we have got from requirements to code to change list to the Ant builds. That hierarchy is kind of generated as we are going from step to step. And these builds are now available through the other stakeholders. Now it goes back to the developers for doing the unit testing, right? And for that they use the JUnit. Again, JUnit is an Eclipse-based tool, so they use the same Eclipse interface, but it's a separate interface. And here is the hierarchy, starting from the requirements to code to Subversion file change set to the unit test, from code file to the unit test. So the code is actually related to both Subversion change list as well as to the unit test. You see that they are actually in the same level, the change set and the unit test cases. So once that is done, now we can go to the test cases which are actually managed by Kovair. And so directly from the requirements, now the test cases are related in our traceability relation, right? And as you can see, the test cases are at the same level as the code files because they are directly related to the requirements. And so that hierarchy of the traceability view actually shows at different levels these different kinds of objects, even though they are coming from different tools. So after that, it goes to the issues and defect tracking. So we have got the issues which are being generated out of the test cases as they are being tested. As a matter of fact, Kovair allows automatic creation of the issues. So for example, a tester, when they are testing a particular test case, the moment they say fail, for example, a test case, that will automatically generate an issue which has the same kind of description as the test case. It also creates the other field values inherited from the test case. And if there is a particular process created for the issue management, in that case, that particular issue starts triggering that process so that it is assigned to the next person, maybe the developer, to fix that particular issue. And here it shows that the relation between the test case and that issue. The next step is now the project manager, and the project manager wants to see what is really happening with respect to all these different projects. And here is a high-level project health report, and that encompasses or encapsulates all these different things happening in different tools, but finally they are brought in together in Kovair. So what you see here is the real project health rather than a perceived one where each of these tools are working in isolation, because you actually have all this information in Kovair so that you can create a real project health. And as you can see that there are some of the projects are doing well, those are green, some of them are not doing well, they are red. And you can create all these different kinds of matrices within Kovair to calculate, and these matrices cover multiple different objects coming from different tools. So that is basically how all these different states are working using Omnibus. Now this is you see the traceability view I was talking about. So this is the kind of traceability view in a larger format where you see at the top we have the requirements, right? This is the requirements to the test cases, to the code file, to the change tester version, to the AND build, and also to the test case. And under the test case, actually, you can also have the issues. I could have shown that also. So you see that what is really important is that the integration is great, but I think the biggest question is, so what? What do we really achieve by doing this integration? And this is what we achieve, is that the traceability and the linkage of all these different items, even though they started their life and they are really managed by all these different tools. I think this is one of the golden golden achievement of any kind of integration, whether it is in a tool kind of environment or any other application. Now, the example I've shown you is for the Java development using different kinds of tools from different vendors, right? Now, I'll give you two more examples, not the full example, but here is one example with the Rational tools, because Rational has one of the complete suite, and it is not atypical to see that many of the companies, they kind of standardize on Rational tools. So this is, I'm showing you as an example that it is not necessary that only a mixed environment, but you can do it for one particular vendor also. So here is, for example, requirements management is done by Requisite Pro, the UML modeling is by Software Architect, design is done by the Software Modeler, the coding is done by the application, the Rational Application Developer, configuration management is by ClearCase, then the build is done by Ant. Actually, build can be done by, I think, Forge. Forge build, I think it's called. Forge build. So Forge build is possibly should be replaced by Ant because Forge build is now acquired by Rational. Unit test is by JUnit. I don't know whether Rational has any tool for unit testing. And then the functional tester for testing. And finally, the test management is by Rational Test Manager. So these are all these different tools can be integrated with Omni, but actually we have quite a few adapters, and I'll show you when I show the list of adapters there. And this gives you the most interesting thing is that, and this is, many of these are actually used by Rational. Infosys. So Infosys went to Rational and basically told them that show us that you can actually integrate them all together and give us a total picture, like the traceability view I've shown you. They could not actually do that, and Rajiv, I think, has already told you that. The interesting thing is that Kovair does a Rational integration much better than what Rational has done themselves, and that is a proven fact. And then you can use the Kovair project management for the task, process, time, dashboard, reporting, traceability, getting all the information from all these different Rational tools. The second example I want to give for a single individual vendor is Microsoft. So in this particular case, similar to Rational, but it's a little bit different, is the requirements management is done by Kovair because Microsoft doesn't have any requirements management tool. Software modeling is done by VSTS Designer. Coding is done by the VSTS developer. The configuration management is done by the TFS, their new configuration management which has replaced the Visual Sources. You have the software build is done by Microsoft Build, which is part of, I think, TFS. Then the testing is done by VSTS Tester. Test management is done by Kovair because the VSTS doesn't have a test management tool. They have the automated test tools, which is equivalent to, let's say, like the Rational robot or maybe the QTP from Mercury, HP Mercury. And then the issues management, defect tracking is done by Kovair. Project management is done by Microsoft Project. And finally, document management is done by SharePoint. Requirements gathering, business reporting done by Word and Excel. So we already have a number of these different adapters. So this also gives you overall environment for any organization who is using just the Microsoft tools, just like what we have seen previously using Rational tools and before that mixed vendor tools. Okay, so that's our Microsoft environment. Now, let's look at some of the different kinds of reporting. So I think the question is that we have done this integration So the next question is, what is the advantage of this integration? What do we get out of it? And one of them I have shown you is this project health report. This itself, I think, is a great benefit for a project manager when they can see all these different kinds of tools integrated, and people are working on different tools, and those values are coming all together in Kovair to create this project health report, which gives the real project health rather than a perceived one. Traceability view, actually, we have already seen that with respect to our one particular example, that this gives you a complete kind of view of data coming from different tools, but in a hierarchy of traceability relations. Actually, Kovair has a number of different kinds of traceability view. This is just one of them. We have a metrics view, which is kind of typical, but in our case, the metrics view has the metrics between the data coming from different tools. Or we also have a network view. So in a traceability network view, you can see a particular item, our requirement is linked with number of different objects, even when the objects are coming from different tools in a network diagram. So this is a burn-down chart, for example. Again, this burn-down chart is based on, I think, functional requirements set testing. So these kind of graphical report you can create in Kovair based on the data coming from different tools. This is a dashboard. We have a very actually colorful dashboarding capability, very powerful also. So what's really happening in a single dashboard? Now you are looking at all these different kinds of metrics, information based on the data, and the mixture of data. It is not just one single kind of data from one particular tool, but mixture of data coming together, and you can create these matrices and show it in a graphical format in this dashboard. Now, CMM level, I think the CMM is one of the CMMI is one of the goals of kind of creating this ecosystem of different tools, and that is, I think, the grand view of a grand, I think, goal for many companies. And Kovair, as I mentioned, that Kovair itself can be used for supporting CMMI. We have companies, customers who actually do that. But having all these other tools and integrated with Kovair gives you even more advantage of achieving CMMI. So here are some of the process areas as managed by Kovair, either directly or by integration with other tools. And these are the CMM level 2. And similarly, we have got CMM level 3, all these other process areas. Now, as you know, the level 4 and level 5, they don't introduce new process areas. They actually work on making that process area more optimized and more process-oriented. And as I have already mentioned, Kovair's process engine is one of the most powerful in the industry, so you can actually use that for automating and many of these processes which are part of the level 4, and then all the matrices and everything you create allows you to optimize those processes in level 5. Now let's quickly go through the benefits of Kovair. First of all, you get an integrated ALM environment with the multi-vendor ALM tools. I think that's the number one benefit. That is the goal of many organizations today, and that's why we are talking today. Overall traceability, I think that's possibly the number one benefit coming out of this integration. And I have spent some time to show you what kind of traceability reports you are getting in the real-life situation with the data coming from different tools. And since Kovair is a browser-based and available 24/7, it's 100% browser-based, means all functionalities are available through the browser. So it's perfectly suitable for a global application development with a distributed team. Actually, we ourselves as a distributed team, we have a development team in India, so we of course use our own tool to manage that, and many of our customers do the same thing. End-to-end process automation. So process, we always talk about process, but at the end of the day, we don't do it because if you try to implement a process manually, you have to depend on individual process participants, individual discipline. And after some time, it doesn't work because people forget, people do mistake, etc. So the manual processes break down after a few weeks. That is the fact. But using a process automation, you can actually automate that so that it becomes completely transparent to the participants, and participants just do whatever they need to do. The rest is all taken care of by the process, and Kovair process actually allows you to do that. The total visibility, so this is another very important thing. The data is no more trapped in different tools. You can actually look at those data. You can relate the data with other tools' data. So that is a big advantage, especially for the project managers, the development managers, to look at all these different kinds of data and slice and dice them. The better change management, because the change management starts from one point and it can actually impact a large number of different tools. So a single change in a requirement can actually impact almost every aspect of development: the coding, the testing, the unit testing, the user acceptance testing. So all of those can be actually impacted. So unless you have got those kinds of traceabilities, you cannot do those kinds of change management. The overall productivity is increased because you don't have to actually copy and paste the data from one tool to another tool. Those things are all done in the background. So the productivity increase is real in this particular case. And finally, at the end, what do we do with all these things? At the end, you are getting a better quality, improved quality with the reduced time of delivery. That is, I think, the biggest advantage of all this integration. Now, let's quickly go through some of these adapters. This list we can provide you. So these are the list we currently have. As you can see, our focus is mostly initially on the more popular tools from the IBM, HP, Microsoft, etc., and many of the open source tools as well. They are very popular tools on Eclipse platform. These are the adapters we are currently developing and will be available by March, by this end of this quarter. And then finally, we are planning to do some of these adapters by 2010 later, maybe in second quarter of 2010. Now, one thing I should mention here that typically the strategy we have taken is that rather than proactively creating the adapters, we have done some of them, but typically we follow the requirements of a particular customer. So in your case, obviously you would like to have integration with many of the CA tools, and we'd love to do that. And typically it takes about 4 to 6 man weeks to create those adapters. Now, that is a kind of average, but that's our experience at this point of time. All right, so that kind of ends our presentation. We don't have much time, but I'd like to open it for a Q&A session. I'll be happy to answer any question you may have.
I just one quick one here. The 3 sample examples that you went through on the integration, the first one that had a lot of the Kovair tool in them, the second one the IBM, and the third one the Microsoft. What experience you guys have where you have all kinds of dispersed tools in the environment?
Let me give you the real-life example, Infosys. So Infosys is a really dispersed kind of tool. As I told you that they are using rational tools, they are using open source tools, Microsoft tools, their own internal tools, and they are not using a single Kovair tool. They are just using the Kovair Omnibus platform for integrate all of them. They have planned to use Kovair tool in future, but as we speak right now, they are not using any of the Kovair tools. So from that point of view, right now, Kovair for Omnibus is in production in a real-life situation where there are really dispersed kind of situations, there are many different kinds of tools.
And the connectors that you talked about in the tail end, again, were, you said, mostly focused around 3 or 4 big vendors, IBM, Microsoft, HP. So did those guys have to write like special connectors? Do you have APIs to write connectors, or how did they work around that?
So all the adapters you see here are all developed by us. So none of the other vendors are involved in creating these adapters. We develop these adapters based on their published API in those cases where the API is available. In some of the smaller tools, in that case, we are using, for example, the Eclipse-based tools like Ant and JUnit. We are using the Eclipse API to integrate them. In some of the cases, as a matter of fact, I can tell you that some of the internal tools, it may be there is no API. We directly work on the database and write triggers to create this adapter. So the bottom line is all of these adapters are developed by us, independent of the other vendors.
To have an API.
Okay.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, another question.
Go
ahead.
We have a focused API. Go ahead.
Shut up. George, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll try again. Thank you. So just further to, I think it was Puneet's question. I see reference to multiple tools from different vendors, and that's a good thing. Have you done any implementations where there are multiple tools for the same function or domain from different vendors? So, for instance, where you might have ClearQuest and Quality Center for defect management, as an example.
Yes. That's a good question. As a matter of fact, Omnibus supports multiple tools for the same functions. I'll give you an example with requirements management. So a situation like Requisite Pro, Quality Center, as you know, the Quality Center has its own kind of built-in requirements management, and Kovair requirements management. All three are working together in a single group, and the requirements may be submitted by different people in different tools, and they are getting replicated from one tool to another tool. And you can actually see all the requirements together in Kovair, even though they are coming from different tools.
Does that answer your question?
Does it answer your question?
It did, thank you. Yep.
Okay, this is Mario. I just have two quick questions. One is have you integrated with any agile tools yet?
You see that agile, if you buy agile tool, you are talking about, let's say, RallyDev. No, we don't have any integration with RallyDev yet. Kovair, though, has its own implementation of agile methodology. But you can use these tool integrations to actually do an agile methodology. Agile methodology does not really ask you to follow a particular tool. So using the same set of tools, you can actually follow an agile methodology. And also Kovair, as I mentioned, has its own agile methodology implementation.
By the way, this is Rashid. Did you have any specific agile tools in mind?
I was thinking more like version 1 or Jira Greenhopper.
Yeah, so saying that Kovair has also these agile functionalities and you can use other tools, but we can always create an adapter for version 1 or RallyDev to synchronize information between Kovair and the other tools, or the RallyDev Greenhopper, as you said, and other your requirements management tools or test management tools. That can always be done. It's a matter of creating this adapter for Greenhopper, or in case of Greenhopper, it would mostly be a plug-in kind of adapter. But for version 1 and RallyDev, it's a server kind of system, so it would be a full-fledged adapter.
Thank you.
Any other question or?
Do you guys need to have any metrics? I know you talked about deployment and Infosys, which is a pretty complicated one, and it sounds like, but do you have any metrics once the deployment was done? What kind of productivity increase or cost benefits kind of metrics you guys generate? Any of that on your site or somewhere?
You see that from our side, you see that this is basically the customer. If they have the productivity information before and after, then only you can actually show that increase. Unfortunately, though we are always eager to kind of see those kinds of matrices, but rarely customers really have those kinds of matrices before and after. After, yes, we can possibly generate those because as I've shown you the different kinds of matrices, but since there is no data available before this integration, So I don't think we have anything to show you there is a productivity increase. But I can tell you one instance for one of the customers. We asked the same question, and they told that, well, we cannot give you any kind of number for that, but I can tell you that for that particular group, to manage it, we don't need 2 more persons. So reduce the total workload by 2 persons. So whatever that means, you can calculate based on the productivity in terms of the total man hours in that case. I know that doesn't answer the question very well, but unfortunately that's the reality.
I understood, but before, like anything else, before you go about picking a tool, implementing it, you always have to cater to what is the end goal and how you're going to measure that goal, right? So maybe I understand that it's hard to get those metrics, but are there some measurement sticks that you guys propose that, okay, if you implement Omnibus, that's the kind of result that you should be measuring against?
I think the biggest measurement is in terms of the one is that many of these reports, as you see, sometimes they are created manually, right? When there is no integration, so somebody has to actually manually compile those reports by getting the data from different tools, etc. Now, of course, you can do it automatically just by a single click within Kovair. So I think that is one of the ways of measuring it, saying that, okay, so to generate these reports, how much time we are spending in the past, maybe some kind of approximation or estimate, and how much time now I'm spending. Actually, I'm not spending any time at all now, because with a single click it is done. Not only that, you can even schedule the report generation every Monday morning. The development manager is getting a report generated out of the last week's all the work, etc. But it actually varies from customer to customer. What is there really, I would say, the metrics they would like to see. The project health report is actually one of the things that people would like to see in terms of the overall project health, covering all the different tools, which was not possible, or people don't do it when they have to do the whole thing manually. So that is one of the things I think you can achieve out of this integration.
This is Rajiv. Let me add quickly here. It's like, it's not that we haven't tried. We did try with customers to get this kind of data because it helps us from a sales point of view, it helps us to convince others. But the problem that we run into is like when they have the problem, they're too busy solving it, so they don't have time to dig into it. Yeah, I know we have a problem. Can you help us solve this? So they find we solve that. And once we start solving it, they don't have the time to set aside to do the kind of data gathering that we need. So, we would love to do something like that with maybe like Computer Associates or some big company, but to be honest with you, it hasn't happened yet. But we can give you some cursory idea, right? You can, as Sky was talking about the project health report, right? So we can give you some idea, or you can actually get some idea what kind of productivity you might be able to generate based on automating some of the processes and report generation and so on.
Actually, let me just... Yeah, go ahead.
And I hope you see the value of this report that Sky showed, coming from different vendor tools and consolidating them and so on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, thanks.
Actually, let me kind of reverse that question. If you today, without the integration, if you are facing certain problems and if you have certain metrics you'd like to improve, if you can share with us, possibly we can get back to you saying that what kind of improvement you can expect after the integration.
That's fair.
If you just take like 2 or 3 of your pain points and say, fine, so look, these are our pain points, and this is, I think, whatever the time and resources we are spending on them. Can you guys tell us, like, how much more you can improve? We'd be happy to do that. I mean, it would be a great exercise for us to go through it at this point.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Yeah, I have one. You mentioned Forrester in some of your talk early on. Are there any analyst reports you can refer us to that talk a little bit more about your solution and how it's deployed? And I guess the second similar question would be around best practice information. Do you have any documentation that we could review on best practices as it relates to implementing your solutions?
I think, first of all, some of our white papers around integration, I think we have shared with you guys. Rajiv, did we send some of these omnibus-related white papers?
I did. I can work with David on that and see, if the gaps, and I can maybe share some of them with you also, because there are some white papers also, with process enablement and integration. So we can definitely. I'll work with David to see what I have shared and what more I can send.
Thank you.
And about the analyst, I think we can share with you some of the. We are actually followed by both Forrester and Gartner, so we can give you some names, and if you want, you can even talk to them. And especially with respect to the integration, I think Forrester has a. They had a report on the requirements management where they actually mentioned about this multi-repository ALM. And I cannot send you the full report, but if you have access to the report, I can give you the report number and you can look at that. Otherwise, I can send you that portion where they refer to Kovair.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I believe we can get access to the report if you give us the details.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's get the reference number, Sky, and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other question? All right. So if there's no other question, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this presentation. And if you have any question later, please feel free to send it to Rajiv, and we'll be very happy to answer them.
Absolutely. And again, this is Rajiv. I would like to thank all of you for taking the time this afternoon and, to go over the presentation, and feel free to send me any question. And David, thank you very much for getting everybody together. I know it's not very easy with everybody's busy schedule and so on. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for the time.
Yes, thank you very much as well. We're assuming you're pretty busy as well, and appreciate your time and attention.
No, we are not. We are never busy. And from a sales point of view, I'm never busy for a prospect.
That's fair enough.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
thanks very much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye now.
All right.
Okay.